Hello everybody and welcome back to Kerbal Space Program, where I was just taking a look at what our next exploration mission is, and it's just plant a flag on Duna. We should be able to do that literally right now for free. So let's hop over to our Duna outpost here. We have a science station here, right? So we have landed at Duna. Here we go, the combined Duna lander. So we're going to fly that, and we are going to just hop out of this capsule here, plant ourselves a flag, and call it a day. That's going to be possibly the easiest exploration mission we've done in this entire series. I love it. So as soon as we load in here, any moment now, and as long as we're here, we might as well transmit back the science, right? There should be some science here, I think. I mean, we've got all of this that we could theoretically grab too. Yep, science full. So we're going to transmit our science here. There we go. And let's get that science fully transmitted. 20%, 30, 40, and not enough electric charge. Okay. Our electric charge is not great. Are we... Let's see. We need to set this guy to allow partial. There we go. Now we're going to transmit this science. There we go. So yeah, not enough electric charge, but that's fine. We're just going to continue to use what we've got here. 75, 80, 85, 90, and done. Fantastic. So now we can take somebody out of here. Why do we have 3 Kerbals here? That seems overkill. We obviously don't have enough DV to get home here, but let's hop, say, Milbro out here. And we're just going to let go. Cool. All we need to do is plant a flag, which we actually haven't done over here. So let's just... Apparently Milbro doesn't like to sprint. That's interesting. I cannot get him to sprint. Oh, it's because RCS is on, isn't it? Yep. That would do it. Okay, so we're going to drop our flag right here. Perfect. And we are, of course, going to entitle this flag, what else but a bit... Wow, I cannot type. A bit late. Okay, perfect. So that flag was right on time. I don't know what you're talking about. And we've got a ladder on this side, so we may as well just hop up over here. Cool. We'll hop back in, and we'll make sure that Milbro is back to researching. Okay, we are indeed researching. This is still saying science full. I feel like we already transmitted this science, but okay. We'll transmit it again and see what happens. Okay, 500 science added, and it just fills right back up. Okay, gotcha. So we're doing that. So we're going to continue transmitting this as long as we're here. We may as well. So that's now done, and we're filling back up again. Are we just going to process all of this science? I'm guessing we are. Does indeed appear to be the case. So let's just transmit this on over. Beautiful. And we're done. Now are we going to get all of this science? No, we're going to run out of data, aren't we? So let's grab a temperature scan here. Actually, I want to not suppress the results window. Let's grab a seismic scan. We're going to process that in the lab. Gravity scan, process in lab. Atmospheric analysis. Oh, it's stowed. Okay. We're going to open up our service bay then. Atmospheric analysis, process in the lab. Our science is currently full, and we're just going to transmit this back. Perfect. I wonder how many times we're going to be able to do this. Well, more than this. I guess we'll just keep transmitting for now. Cool. So we've still got more science to transmit here. Beautiful. We have a lot of backlogged science, it seems. So that's fine. We're going to keep doing this. This is a lot of science, which of course is worth a decent amount of cash to us at this point. We don't get other tech. We're maxed out on tech, but this is all fine for science. So we'll keep transmitting this data. There we go. And how are we doing on that science? Cool. Continuing to transmit. We'll grab more data and throw it in there if we need to. Okay, it looks like now we're done with all of that stored science. Cool. So I'm going to have Milbro EVA real quick. We're going to grab our EVA report and our surface sample. There we go. And we're going to review this data, process in lab, and process in lab. Perfect. So yeah, we're now processing at a normal speed. We can't do a seismic scan. We can't do any of these, I don't think. So that should be absolutely fine at this point. Let's head back to the Space Center. We have our contract done. We have a lot of science that we got out of that. And let's see exactly how much we have. It's going to be a hefty amount. We sent back, what, like 3,000 there? Not to mention what we've gotten over the last little while. We haven't done anything with it in a while. So we should have quite a lot of science here. Let's see what we've got. 10,000. Okay, so we're going to do our research rights sellout. We're going to sell out all of our science, and we're going to get a lot of cash out of that. Phenomenal. So that was over $1 million that we got from that. At this point, this is going to be a lot of stuff here. Okay, there's a lot of screen messages in here. I really wish there was a clear all button. Unfortunately, there is not. The good news is we're almost done with this. We've only got a few left. There we go. So let's hop into the mission control, explore the sun, transfer any crew between vessels near the sun. When it says near the sun, does it mean in orbit of the sun or in close orbit of the sun? I don't know. One of these things is a lot easier to do than the other. Let's grab this, and I'm going to assume that it's just in orbit of the sun. But I don't know that for a fact. Does it say in here? Just around the sun. Okay. So that should be reasonably fine. I don't want this pinned open. We're going to hop into the VAB, and we're going to create ourselves a quick craft for this. We're going to need 2 of these. We're going to send up one that is uncrewed, as like an uncrewed test flight. So we're going to open up something. Actually, I'm going to make an all-new craft for this. We're going to make an all-new craft here. We're going to grab not a Mark 1-2 command pod, or rather a Mark 2 command pod. We're going to grab a Mark 1 command pod. Let's make that be white, since we're going to be around the sun, and we want to reflect as much heat as possible. Not that that, does anything, but that would be the goal here. Let's put in a Mark 16 parachute. We'll put in a pair of radial mount drogue chutes, and put them somewhere like, we need to be able to actually exit this thing, right? So I'm just going to do something like that, and then I'm going to do a regular drogue chute, or rather a regular chute back over here in case we get greedy. It's not probably necessary, but in case we get greedy, we'll do something like that. Then we're going to be bringing back very little here. We don't need to bring any science, so a heat shield directly here should be absolutely fine. A 1.25 meter heat shield here. This is the capsule that we're going to return, assuming we don't get greedy, which we might. That's fine. We're going to put in a decoupler, so a TD-12 decoupler. Then I'm going to put in a T-800 fuel tank here. So we're just going to do, where are you at, T-800? That's the Rocket Max. I always want to go down to the Rocket Max. Here's a T-800. We're going to make this be nuclear fueled. Nuclear is, of course, one of the better ways of propulsion that we can do for this sort of thing. We're just going to be running a NERV atomic rocket motor. And the question is, what is the delta V that that's going to have? 2,400? Okay, that's reasonable. Seems fine. We're probably not going to need too much more than that. So from there, we are going to want to have I was going to say like an interplanetary transfer stage. It's not really that, though. The terminology is a little bit awkward here. Let's put in a TD-12 decoupler. And at this point, I want to go up to Rocket Max size. So I want to put in a fuel adapter. We're going to need to go into fuel tanks, and we're going to need to grab like one of these guys. And then one of these guys. No, not one of these guys. One of these guys to go up to Rocket Max size. Cool. And then we're just going to toss in like a Jumbo 64 feels like overkill here. It feels like so much overkill. I'm going to go for a 32, which still feels like overkill. And we're going to simply put in a poodle here, of course. Hang on, I know that I'm missing something here. Oh, I know what it is. Okay, we put in the poodle here, and we forgot to include a remote guidance unit up here. That would help. So we would put in a remote guidance unit here. We probably should put in a battery as well, just to be on the safe side there. Do we want a smart SAS up here as well? I mean, this has a reaction wheel, as does this, so I think we'll be okay on the reaction wheel front. Power is a bit of a concern, so we should probably have like some retractable photovoltaic panels. Those would go in, say, here. Would be fine. Cool. So that should be absolutely okay for that. This is already kind of monstrous and overkill, I'm sure. But we're going to put in a TD25 decoupler, and now we're going to need our lifting stage. So the question is, how ridiculous do we want to go on our lifting stage? That's always the question here. So I'm going to put in a couple of Jumbo 64 fuel tanks. Let's put in a mainsail, and let's see what we've got. 1.22. I'm not shocked that that's not super high. That's honestly deeply unsurprising. I want to grab our drogues. Yes, drogues. And move them down over here. Cool. Staging looks good at this point. So we can just strap on some side SRBs, and this would be absolutely fine, I would think. So we would do something along the lines of coupling. We would do some radial decouplers. We really only need 2 of these. We probably don't even need that much, to be honest. This is almost certainly ridiculous overkill. I think Pollexes are the way to go here. This is obviously up too high. But we'll do our normal fuel tank. That is not the correct size. Really? I thought for sure these were Rockamax size. I guess those are Clydesdales that are Rockamax size. Okay, so we'd go for, like, those are Kerbin. Hang on. These bad boys. There we go. So something kind of like that. And white will be fine. They don't quite match, but it's okay. We're going to move these guys on down over here. Nice. So, of course, we'll need to strut that, and we will do exactly that. We'll strut it here, and we'll strut it. Do we need to strut it up here? I feel like we kind of don't, but I'm going to do it just to be safe. Specifically, I'm going to strut it here, just to make sure that this joint isn't too wiggly. This is maybe a wiggle problem here. So arguably struts going from here to here would be good. And we can certainly do that, just to make sure that we have a point of strength there. So that's reasonably fine. I would like to, of course, be able to use our fuel in our hemispherical fuel tanks. So we'll move those over like so. Those will definitely be burnt out by the time the SRBs are. No problem whatsoever there. What's our thruster weight? 1.07, because we are not doing our mainsail at the correct time. 1.7. That's more like it. Cool. So this should be more than capable of doing a transfer in sun space. Now this first one's going to be unmanned, and we're going to call this the Kerbal transfer-er. Perfect. We'll save that, and we'll put this out on the pad. Let's do a quick jiggle test. I want to double check staging, of course. That all looks good. Yep. Okay. Let's go run a jiggle test, and then we'll put this thing into orbit. So we're going to need to put these into somewhat different orbits so that they can sync up in a somewhat reasonable time frame. And that's definitely something that we're going to do. We don't want to change our inclination, though, if we can help it. And I'm still assuming that this is not in space low over the sun. Well, hello, MechJeb Autopilot. We don't need you for this flight. We're going to turn you off, and we're going to power this guy on. Actually, we could use MechJeb Autopilot. We have no pilot aboard. Maybe it's not the worst idea to do. Yeah, I think it's okay. We can do ascent guidance here. And 100-kilometer orbit seems fine. Sure, we'll engage autopilot, and we are heading off in 3, 2, 1, 0. Seems relatively stable. Cool. So no major issues here thus far. We know that these SRBs are going to be detaching in about 42 seconds, which is probably actually 42 seconds, considering our frame rate is reasonable with this rocket, which is kind of unusual for this series at this point. But it'll be absolutely fine. So we'll just mech jeb our way on up, and we'll get ourselves a nice, efficient gravity turn. Now, the next flight is going to have a pilot aboard, and we could argue that we should use Ascent Autopilot because of the remote guidance unit. Maybe we just ditch the remote guidance unit, though, and we do it manually. Might not be the worst idea. We don't have a KER on this, not that we need one. So I want to just hop over into here and keep an eye on that apoapsis. We'll also keep an eye on MechJeb staging events, which can be sometimes a little bit suspicious if MechJeb doesn't quite understand what we've got going on with our rocket, which can happen, but shouldn't here. We shouldn't run into any real issues. This is very straightforward. So up we go. We are currently sitting at an apoapsis of about 70 kilometers. SRBs popping off in 1 second. This is almost perfect SRB timing, actually. Because there we are. We're now in our coast phase. Cool. Yeah, that's basically perfect SRB timing. I like it. So up we go here. We are, of course, going to be extending the solar panels once MechJeb determines that it's safe, which is going to be 70 kilometers. And then from here, I just want to push this out. I'm thinking about what direction we want to go. And I think we want to go up, away from the sun. There's those solar panels out. Perfect. And we're definitely going to be a little slow to turn here. There's no doubt about that. But this is going to burn out basically this entire stage, and we'll have lots of Delta V here for rendezvous maneuvers. Not if we need to get, like, in space low over Kerbal, but I really don't think we do. Based on my read of the contract here. It says near the sun, but this says in orbit of the sun here. So I think it's just in orbit. If it is actually near, then we'll have to think about how we want to do this. That'll be interesting, for sure. So we're going to start our burn here in about 10 seconds. This is very slow to turn at this point, but once this stage gets burnt off, we should have no real problems with it. MechJeb is going to perform the circularization burn maybe a bit late here. Yeah, it's a bit late here. It's not using the gimbal on our engine, so it took it a little longer than MechJeb wanted to get this started. And now, to be honest, we don't want this gimbal on because it's creating that wiggle. See, we turn that off, and, I mean, we're drifting off right now, which is awkward. Okay. We do actually want the gimbal right now, but I'm going to turn the gimbal limit down to, like, 30%. There we go. That's better. Cool. So we're going to be in a slightly awkward orbit here because of that, but it's not the end of the world. MechJeb is basically done at this point. It's done its job. And like I said, I think I want to push away from Kerbin and just raise our orbit up a decent amount here on this first flight so that we can come in underneath it on the next flight would be the idea here. And we want to go away from Kerbin, assuming that we don't have to go, you know, into a near orbit of Kerbin. Or rather, Kerbal. I don't think that we need to go into a near orbit of Kerbal. I really, really don't. But if we do, we'll have to reevaluate this. So we're going to have a little bit more Delta V here, but we've got a lot of stuff in this tank, right? We've got a lot of Delta V. 6,000. This could get us a really long ways. This is definitely overkill. The real problem, of course, is if we need to go into low over Kerbal. We'll see. That'll probably require returning and trying again with some freshly fueled craft, or doing a refueling mission, but I don't think that's worth it. Okay, so we're in orbit here. It's not a perfect orbit, but thanks, MechJeb. That'll do. So at this point, I want to push out away from Kerbal. So here at the apoapsis, we're going to push on out this direction. And I want to look at our final resultant orbit here. This is about halfway to Duna, and that's honestly about where I want to be. Cool. That looks good. So we're going to head on over to the node, and we should be able to turn there relatively quickly now that we've lost a huge amount of our weight from our initial booster stage. And that's great. So we're just going to get into position here, and in about 20 minutes, we will get ourselves out into interplanetary space, and once there, we'll circularize, and then we'll go back and get our crew. We, of course, need crew to do a cruise transfer, right? So we're going to have to bring a second flight of this, and that's absolutely okay. I'm wondering if maybe we should have combined these two stages and just run it liquid-fueled at this point. Probably would have been more efficient, but I don't think I'm going to make that alteration. That'll take time, but that probably would be a slightly better design at this point, now that we know that this gets into orbit without hardly running. So that's... And we drop the oxidizer weight here, too. I think it's definitely an interesting choice that we could do. But I don't think there's a point in really doing it this mission. 3, 2, 1, 0, and off we go. Cool. So this is going to be about a 2-minute burn. And let's warp on forward. We can definitely see that thrust to weight coming on up as our fuel burns out. But another 700 meters per second to go here. 500. Cool. We don't have this ridiculously low thrust to weight like we did on other flights as well. Even this nuclear engine is 0.86, so that's really not bad. Turning off the physics warp, we're going to be wrapping up this burn momentarily. 3, 2, 1, and good enough. Engine shut down. Cool. So now we just hop out over here, but we know that we've been having problems from changing sphere of influence. Let's just warp out this way and see what ends up happening when we change the sphere of influence before we make any maneuver nodes here. Okay, so we're in space high over the sun right now, and we're going to add a maneuver here. We're control locked. Right. We would be control locked because I didn't include an antenna. Well, that's mildly awkward. I didn't expect to be control locked this quickly, for sure. But that's okay. Even with the control lock, there's certain things that you can still do. And we're just going to do this without a maneuver then. So we're just going to warp up to here. And then we're going to go into prograde, and we're just going to burn without a maneuver. That's fine. We're just going to circularize ourselves here. I just don't want to get recaptured by Kerbin and have a bunch of wonky stuff going on while we're trying to rendezvous with this. That'll just be obnoxious, right? So we'll just raise this back up. I don't know how much Delta V it'll be, but we've definitely got enough here. No problem whatsoever there. And we may actually want to bring an engineer. And perhaps even like a relay satellite antenna that we can strap onto this with our next flight. I think that makes a decent amount of sense. So we can turn this into a relay satellite once we're done with it. That would be the idea. Yeah, I kind of like that idea. For now, of course, we are just going to finish up this time warp. Still another 50 days on that one. But we're going to be able to pop our way over to prograde. We can do this without a connection. And we'd be able to do it without using MechJeb as well. So if we were to turn on SAS here, which MechJeb is instantly turning off, we can just pop over to prograde, and we can max and minimize the throttle. Nothing else, only max and min. But that's enough. That's all we need. So we're going to pop over to prograde here. I'm not using MechJeb at all since we have no connection. And we're going to maximize this throttle, and you can see that we are indeed pushing this out. Cool. I'm going to physics warp as we burn this. And we're just going to circularize this a bit. It doesn't have to be perfect. Look at how wild this is without MechJeb. Okay, we're starting to see the apoapsis and periapsis move when they are here and here. That's when we want to stop our burn. So a little more than this. Okay, sure, this is good enough. That'll do. I overshot it a little, but I'm not going to bother with it. Okay, so at this point, we are done with the Kerbal transfer, and we need to make our way on back. So we're going to head to the Space Center, and we're going to send up our other one. This time, I'm going to remember to put on a... And actually, if we're going to send an engineer, we should keep the remote guidance unit on there. Yeah, we definitely should. We need to put an antenna on here, for sure. I do not want to try to do a maneuver to, or rather, I don't want to try to do a rendezvous without maneuvers. That's going to be really, 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 really awkward. So we want to make sure that we put an antenna on it. Absolutely. Top priority. We want to make sure that we have a second antenna. And this one will transfer over. Or actually, yeah. Here's what we'll do. This one gets the relay antenna. And we will put a communitron over here. This would be intended for the other craft. The relay antenna would stay with this craft. Okay, I hate that. Maybe we'll just do dual communitrons. Or an RA2. RA100 is just really, really big, right? I mean, if we can lift it, we should be able to lift it even. That also means that this one doesn't require the chutes, because this one is not coming back, right? So we ditch the chutes, and we can now put the relay antenna here. It's only mildly awkward. Yeah, I'd call that mildly awkward. Okay, we'll save this, and we're going to make sure that there's an engineer in here. It doesn't matter which one, in theory. Bill would work. So yeah, that would be fine. We'll save that, and we'll put it out on the pad. But it is time to put a cut in here, so I'm going to go ahead and do that. And next episode, we're going to send Bill on up to get this rendezvous done. Fingers crossed that this is what the contract is actually referring to. I technically don't know, but if it is, great. If it isn't, well, we'll just go down low then and do it again. Not a big deal. You can leave your offerings to the engagement gods in the form of likes, comments, subscribes, and bell ringings, and a very special thank you to all of the channel members for making this video possible, including ALS Gamer, Atala, Shadowwolf, MLohan80, Rogue Corvid, Kentogan, Andy Magar, Spartan News, Nick Smarty, Dimitri H, Punching the Microphone, Soccerman12 UK, and all the rest. And of course, you. Thank you for watching. If you'd like to support the channel, you can click the join button down below the video, and as always, I will see you all next time.